You can start with the
Thank you, Mr. Lakhani. Thanks a lot. Now, today we have a wonderful session, and we have some stalwarts in a small incision cataract surgery and a bariatric surgeon also with us. We have Professor KPS Malik, Professor Lahane, Professor SP Singh, myself, then Professor Ruchi Goel, and Professor Ragini Parekh, Professor Chama, and Pranav. So we have these many speakers, and we have to stick to our timing, 8 minutes. And it would be better if we finish a little earlier at 7 minutes so that we can discuss some questions also. And I'm so happy to see all the speakers here. Professor Lahane sir, we had all supported you, and still we know that you'd be the president next year, definitely. And we are all with you all the time. So with these many words, I think SICS is a very, very important subject. I would begin with myself and gradually, because then we will be having the SICS in coexisting diseases. So basically, I want to just discuss this about a small incision cataract surgery. It's a faster surgery, as we all know. It achieves excellent visual outcome. It's very less expensive and requires very little technology. So these are the advantages of this, and my patients are usually like this. In Kumbh Mela, we get these kind of patients who come to us, and talking about the cost to them is not good. So we have a patient like this who is coming to the MDI hospital. All these are also patients. They are pushing this, and the rickshaw man with their all these things, they come to our hospital, and most of the patients are poor. And I always say that there are two persons in this world, Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa, who are remembered because they served the poor. So just a few pearls with videos I would like to share with you all. This is about a small incision cataract surgery through 4 millimeter incision. It was a phacomorphic glaucoma, and we did it through 4 millimeter. You can see it's a phacomorphic glaucoma. The cataract is hypermature. The advantage here is that the cortical matter is there. If you can just aspirate it before doing the surgery, you can easily do SICS through a smaller incision. Not necessarily 4 millimeter, it could be 5 millimeter also. And then you might implant. It's a difficult thing to do capsulorhexis in these hyper mature swollen lenses. So sometimes the rhexis may run, but somehow I could save in this case. And you can see I could complete the rhexis. A large rhexis is required, as we all know. Then you make a side port and aspirate the cortical matter, the milky material that is there in the anterior surface of the lens, that we remove. And then we enlarge it to 4 to 5 millimeter incision. And inner incision, as you all know, is always larger. Then we do rhexis. Rhexis is actually, hydrodissection is not required in this case. We simply rotate it and do a phacosection here. And you can see it is coming out of 4 millimeters. It has broken into several pieces, and we'll be able to prolapse this. This is through a smaller incision, and we can complete the surgery. The second one is limbal relaxing incision. How should we apply limbal relaxing incisions? Because we induce some astigmatism in our patients, so that needs to be corrected. In a patient who has equal keratometry reading in horizontal and vertical meridian, you have to simply do LRI in the. So this is what it does. The incision causes frown incision causes some astigmatism about 1 to 1.5 diopter, which can be corrected by going to the temporal side and giving a limbal relaxing incision, which is usually 6 millimeters, 600 micron deep. So this will negate the astigmatism that you have done through this. And you can see this incision has been given limbal relaxing incision. And then you continue with the usual routine way the SICS is completed in this way. So this gives you 6/6 vision post-operatively without any astigmatism. This is a technique which I learned from Professor KPS Malik and Ruchi. And in these this technique, we give just 2 vertical cuts at the tip, at the end of the frown incision, and that acts like a bridge. And this this prevents astigmatism because it prevents sagging of the wound downwards. So you see this, these are the small incisions that I have given, and then I continue. So the incisions are given here at that this point, and then you continue the surgery. You can see the dimple has been made. So this will prevent the astigmatism. We don't need to go further into this. We do our axis and all that. Then I always say that the iris hooks can be used, and we all do phacoemulsification in small pupils, which Professor S.P. Singh would show us. And you can apply iris hooks and do good SICS without any problem. So what you need to do is apply these iris hooks, and you will find that there is no problem in delivering the nucleus out of the incision. You make 4 ports as usual, as you make in this, and then you apply iris hooks, and then you continue the surgery, and you'll find that it's a very useful technique. Don't need any expensive equipments. So you apply these hooks there and pull it. Take care that you don't pull. This was a case done long time back, and I'm trying to pull it very close to the limbus. I mean, this should not be so much of pulling of the iris up to this place. Rather, it is better to do a little less, because then the chamber becomes shallow and it's slightly problematic. So it's quite an old video of mine, and you can see there were Seineke in this case. So now you simply do rhexis. A large rhexis is always required in a small incision cataract surgery. So you do this, and then you extend the incision, and a hydrodissection will lift the nucleus out of the bag. Rotate it, you can see that there are marks of Seineke, and take out the nucleus. You see the chamber is not disturbed, and you can easily finish off the surgery without any problem. Then I always, these days you will find that people are aspirating the visco from behind the lens. So you can easily do this in SICS also. So what you have to do is you go with the Simcoe behind the lens and remove the visco from behind the IOL, so that your placement of the lens is good, and there are no visco material or any dirt behind the IOL. So that will help you a lot. So this is one technique that can be adapted easily, and one can finish off the surgery without any problem. For cortical cleaning, I learned this. Actually, I used to do, but then it was re-emphasized by our associate professor, Dr. Sharma, that this is a very good technique. You must make a side port. So I always make a side port, and then uh, uh, do the cortical matter, which is easily done in a small pupil, and if you have a subincisional cortex, this side port is a better way, and the chamber remains tight. No surge is seen in these cases. Then if you have a dialysis, supposing while doing this surgery, you get this was about 10 years back. I was showing this case to one of the professors there, and I created this zonular dialysis, and I was really so much worried and ashamed that I have done it, but it happens with all of us. And by the way, it was being recorded. So what I did was that this surgery was going smooth, and when I tried to take the nucleus out of the bag, I just shifted the nucleus to this side, and the nucleus is just a minute. One more video is left. So you simply, I did a zonular dialysis here, and this maneuver, I did this, And then what you can do is you can make an incision here. This dialysis is there. The best way is to go through the temporal side with the nucleus and take it out. Like I made an incision here, and then I took out the nucleus from there and then did vitrectomy and finished off the surgery. So you can prevent lens dislocation. You can also do this implantation under the fluid like this. You can do it without any problem. And this is the fluid going through the Simcoe from the side port. And then you can simply implant the lens, so you don't need to remove the visco expression. A chevron incision is better always, and posterior capsular access sometime may be needed, like in this case. This is a big plaque there, and I made a large posterior capsular access in this case, and can be done if you keep on implanting, putting viscoelastic material, and then on top of that you can implant the lens very easily in the back. So we did a posterior capsular access in this because there was such a would have diminished. So this is my last video. You can see I was able to achieve a good posterior capsular access, and a good biometry of course is required. Thank you so much all the delegates and my co-speakers. So now we have the other speaker who is ready with the slides. So we'll call, I have 6 with hard cataracts from Professor KPS Malik, who's there, our guide, and always there with us in helping all sorts of things. So Professor KPS Malik, please. And I'm so thankful to him because he was having some problem because of COVID, and we are very sorry that our madam had sadly left this world, and we are so sorry, and we are with you, sir, in all your activities, and we wish कि उनकी आत्मा को शांति मिले और आपको सपोर्ट दे. हम जानते हैं you are very emotional these days, and I'm so thankful that you have joined us. So Professor KPS sir, please.
The host, I will request, please don't stop my screen share. I'm going to play the video for Dr. Malik, and please don't mute us again and again. The host, I'm requesting.
मैम जब प्रेजेंटेशन चल रहा होता है तब म्यूट करना पड़ता है, जैसे डिस्टरबेंस होता है.
मैं स्क्रीन शेयर कर रही हूँ, सर बोलेंगे तो प्लीज आप मत.
मुझे मालूम नहीं था ना मैम आप कर रहे हैं.
Over to you, sir.
So this is what we have kind of launched in the country, that SICS is a surgery which is better for hard cataracts, and we started, or I started doing SICS when I was already doing phacoemulsification, but I saw Blumenthal of Israel, and then I realized that this technique must be in our box of things we do, and our instruments and our implements. So small incision cataract surgery virtually can give you the as good result as any femto, any phaco, anything. And better things is that in some of the hardest cataract where phaco, of any good phaco, will take so much energy that you might injure the cornea. So in especially these hard cataracts which are brown or very dense, nucleus is grade 4, 5 plus, then SICS is the ideal procedure. Of course, the mastery of Rexis is required, and I believe that in medical colleges, beginners must be given at least from, if you take it from the last, like irrigation aspiration, Rexis, and if your Rexis is become pen opener, still you can do the SICS. That is another merit of SICS. So tunnel is dissected, and then you internal wound made, and I generally keep that 2 millimeter, 1.5 to 2 millimeter ball or ball of the cornea. So cornea has to be dissected because their self-closing door is cornea. sclera is far behind. And again, if your scleral incision is little away from limbus, less chance of the induced ATR estimated. So hydrodissections and this lens you take out of the mostly hypermature or the hard cataracts comes out of bag easy. But you must evaluate the thickness, the width of the lens, and you must not unnecessarily exert. And as I said yesterday also, that having two ports, left and right and main port, helps you to work bimanually. And my key tool is anterior chamber maintainer, which is making the chamber full all the time. And I inject now, the modification is that we inject viscoelastic through it, not the saline or BSS. We inject BSS, and BSS produces more push being viscous onto the nucleus to get engaged into the section. And once it is engaged, then you have to kind of, with some needle, a straight needle, 23, 24, engage this and wheel it out, like bringing a tire out, tube out of the tire. So it's a question of patience and your instruments. You can see now this nucleus is Niagara. This is hard, black. And then anterior chamber maintainer is there. So you don't require any costly thing. You don't require. So I have just a cannula which is little wider, and then do the cortical aspiration. Here I would say that if you have a big plaque, as Professor Kamaljeet was showing, I don't cut the posterior rhexis in them. I take the 26 gauge needle like a cystotome and do kind of a rhexis, and that plaque sometime gets out like a capsule without making a puncture in the posterior capsule. And you can get a clean this one. And then you virtually keep on rubbing it with a very blunt something. And with the time you will see that whole corner, the posterior capsule is cleared. This is another case of a hard cataract. Rhexis has been done. Nucleus is out in the bag, in the chamber. And this is a, generally my incision doesn't exceed more than 5.5 millimeter frown, and vertical cuts upward edge appreciated by Professor Kamaljeet, that would pull up the section like a hanging bridge and reduce the ATR so that it would not allow slippage of the bone vertically. That is what astigmatism we get. And again, once this shows in the section, again needle to engage, to cut it out pieces wise or just to rotate out. Again, a large nucleus, hard nucleus, and cornea will be absolutely clean next day, possibly better than any phacosurgery large. And then of course you can inject any kind of lens. These days in SICS we generally inject, and this little cautery, and you would not see as surgery has been done. It will be as good as. Thank you very much. And this was all about.
Thank you, Professor KPS Malik, sir. We are so much obliged to you. And
So this is, I think, continuation of that only, or it's something somebody else is doing?
Sir, it's your conclusions which you have already spoken. So I'll,
Okay. So I'm just saying that if you need to suture the wound, no hesitancy. Must suture it, and I suture it horizontal, not vertical. No radial sutures. Radial sutures induce more astigmatism. Horizontal sutures or figure of 8 or infinity sutures press the wound horizontally, and that doesn't put a change in the curvature of the cornea. But if you put vertical sutures, 1 or 2, depending on the tightness, you can induce a very large astigmatism. As told yesterday also, though some of these vertical incision, the sutures can induce astigmatism up to -6. But once you remove them after a month or so, you will find that mostly the cornea returns to normal. So I am monofilament nylon on the vertical suturing. I'm not very happy about. Since in SICS, I do this horizontal suturing, and phaco, of course, no suturing is required. But if need be, in phaco also, I would try to put a suture, which is figure of 8. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Professor KPS Malik. And actually, I had requested Professor Ruchi Goyal, to speak my topic of glaucoma in cataract, because I have seen that she has some wonderful videos on that. And the problem at times is that she is such a popular speaker that they close the applications, like having Ruchi Goyal in all the sessions. So this time I did circumvent the things and requested Partha to please arrange this special speaker, Professor Ruchi Goyal. She accepted my request, and I'll request Dr. Ruchi Goyal to kindly please share your screen.
Thank you so much, sir.
She could read that topic only, not the one assigned by the chairman. Why not?
No, yeah, anything would do, yes, sir. I'm ready with anything. Okay.
Professor Ruchi Goyal and Dr. Malik used to speak a lot on SICS, and I published my book before them. So I am so much obliged to these two stalwarts in SICS. And then
can you see my
yeah, we can see.
Okay, so thanks, sir, so much. I'm kind of a gate crash in this session. So
No, not that, not that. You have been, you are a special invitee, special guest appearance. Thank you so much.
So I shall be speaking on basically SICS in glaucoma patients. And in all these patients, depending on the degree of the severity of glaucoma and the severity of cataract, our management tends to differ. And whenever we are doing cataract surgery in these patients, the problems can be, there could be a shallow AC, there would be presence of synecdoche because of multiple attacks of angle closure or a previous trabeculectomy that may lead to synecdoche formation. The pupil may remain small due to prolonged use of pilocarpine or again formation of synecdoche. The iris may tend to be floppy. And if there is a pre-existing trabeculectomy, the patient may have a hypotenuse eye. And we all know that for the nuclear delivery, it is pertinent to have at least a normotensive eye for the nucleus to come out. So these are the issues that one needs to think about when doing a cataract surgery. So just to share, this is a case of a pre-existing bleb. This is a case of grade 4 nucleus with angle closure glaucoma, chronic ACG, and a pre-existing bleb. And the other problem that we can see here is the extremely shallow fornices. Even this is the medial end actually, and even the lateral end, as you can see, there's no place to work. So despite the fact that one has to change the side, I had to actually put a suture here. The other option was to do a lateral canthotomy to create a place so that we could dissect the tunnel. So this is the tunnel dissection with, I of course, being a pupil of Dr. Malik, trained under him, I do exactly the same surgeries, and this is the same way. Only thing is what you observe here is that despite a very large capsular rhexis, the nucleus delivery from the bag into the AC was difficult, and because of the synecdoche, a two-handed maneuver is being used to bring the nucleus into the bag. So one again has to be careful that you should inject viscoelastic repeatedly so that this hard nucleus doesn't touch the endothelium. So this is the injection of viscoelastic. Now, sometimes in these patients, because of the bleb and the hypotony, the hydropressure created by ACM does not suffice, and the nucleus does not move because enough hydropressure has to be created. So I have used microvectors to assist my delivery in this case. And this is why we advocate that one should be well conversant with all the kinds of SICS technique, because no one technique is going to fit all the cases. So one must know when to interchange. Now, many a times we would offer a combined surgery, and these would be when there is a borderline control despite maximum tolerated therapy, and the patient is not able to tolerate the side effects of these drugs, or is a non-compliant patient, especially when you go to the periphery and you don't expect the patient is going to follow up every 3 months to get an IOP check. So it is best that you do a one go surgery, so that the patient, at least we are able to save the eye. Also, sometimes there would be patients with a very poor media due to lens-induced glaucoma. So this is a flying eagle technique, again, Dr. Malik's innovation, where this posterior end, this projection is akin to this flying eagle's tail. So we have again published this report, and I'll just show you a clip of how we go about doing it. So nowadays, instead of going for a fornix space flap for conjunctival peritomy, we use a limbus based flap. The advantage is that we can suture this together, and it prevents prevents the leakage. Also, we are able to save the stem cells which are next to the limbus. So also we don't want to injure the conjunctiva much, so the conjunctival dissection should be minimal, just enough to allow a good entry of the anterior chamber, and it should not be a very large dissection, so that we have a place for a future trabeculectomy if required. So this is the dissection of the tunnel, and as described earlier also, has to be, the tunnel dissection has to be very careful. This is a patient where you can see the Herbert spits. So sometimes you have a problem in dissection, so you have to be very patient when you're doing this, because old trachoma scars hinder the dissection of the tunnel also. So this is the anterior chamber maintenance being used again, and after this, it is again very important to have a good capsular rhexis when you're doing a combined surgery, because we want the IOL implantation within the bag. You don't want the IOL to be in the sulcus as far as possible to give very good trabeculectomy bleb at a later stage. So this is the entry with the keratome, and you can see that the entry is done nearly about 2 millimeter from the limbus, so that you have a triplanar incision. So the moment you enter, you can see the fluid is coming out. And hydro dissection, this already was done, and this is the nucleus being brought out. Now again, you can see there are some synecdoche on the temporal area. So two-handed maneuver is being used to gently bring the nucleus into the anterior chamber. And all the time, one has to be careful that the nucleus does not touch the endothelium. This is viscoelastic being injected, so that the nucleus finds its place into the internal incision and it has come out. So after that, the cortical wash is, you can just press the lip, and the hydro pressure created by the anterior chamber maintainer flows out the cortical remnants. And this is the epinucleus coming out. And this is what sir was also showing. This is a beautiful technique, for cortical aspiration. The IOL has been placed within the bag. Sometimes this 12 o'clock can be removed after placement of the IOL. Now, this is how we do a trabeculectomy. This is a MVR blade. We don't use any punch, and if you watch carefully, a lip of the corneal section is left intact. So this is a very nice technique, and to do. And you can just chip off this sclerostomy. And after that, this is the iridectomy being done, and the iris is deposited. So we put two sutures over here at the edges of the square shaped flap. This will prevent the against the fold drag and also prevent hypotony. So we always put these two sutures. It's a it gives a very controlled IOP post-op, and this is a very meticulous conjunctival suturing that you need to do to create a very good post-op bleb. So this part really becomes easy if you have a limbus-based flap like this, and at the same time you are also, so this is the conjunctival flap that has been sutured, and at the end you should do a bleb hydration. So you can see the bleb being formed on the table itself. Just to conclude, we had published this study in 30 eyes, and there were no intraoperative or post-operative complications, and the surgically induced astigmatism was less than 0.5 in all the eyes. the mean IOP reduction was nearly 14 to 15 millimeter of mercury. And the advantage of this technique is the intact bridge anteriorly and placement of scleral sutures that prevents against the bone shift and post-op hypotony. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Professor Ruchi Goyal, for a wonderful talk, and this innovation of having a limbal based flap just 1 to 2 millimeters, which helps in stitching, is a wonderful idea.
voice too
And
low.
आ रही है आवाज? आ रही
Yes,
है?
sir. Yes, sir.
So it's a wonderful idea to have this limbal based flap so that you can stitch it properly. And conjunctival stitching here in glaucoma surgery, as we always say, is more important than anything else. And so thank you so much, Professor Ruchi Goyal, for accepting the invitation and
Thank you.
joining us. Please continue with us. Don't leave the meeting.
Yes, thanks.
We have panel discussion at the end. And then we have Professor S.P.
What a flying incision? Flying incision you like or not?
Yes, sir.
Flying incision was liked by people or not?
Yes,
Dr.
yes.
Kamalji, it's for you, this question.
Yes, sir. We liked it. We keep on flying here. Thank you.
Very good, very intact and save the limbus.
Some very useful innovations, sir. Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir. And the next speaker is Professor S.P. Singh. Oh, sorry, Professor Lahane would be speaking on 6 in corneal diseases. So I invite Professor Lahane, Professor T.P. Lahane from Mumbai. Is a very well-known ophthalmologist, and he does wonderful meetings in Bombay Ophthalmic Association. Sir, are you there?
Yes, yes, sir. I am there, and now I will share my screen. Thank you, Kamalji Singh, sir.
Sir has been doing wonderful meetings, and we have always attended. He's a wonderful host, and
Yes,
we
sir.
love him.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Kamalji Singh, sir. Thank you, KPS, sir. Ruchi, thank you very much. Ragini, thank you. And so today my topic is about the SISS in corneal diseases, and see the corneal opacity with the cataract and the management we are discussing here. You will see the 2 cases where you can see the cataract and also the corneal opacity. Now, when we are considering, then there are options: the keratoplasty followed by the cataract, or the cataract with iridotomy, or cataract with the keratoplasty, or the triple procedure you can think. Now, if it is a keratoplasty followed by a cataract, there may be a delay in the visual rehabilitation, risk of endothelial loss, then the graft rejection in the high risk recipients, poor patient compliance is there, then the paucity of the good quality donor corneas, and the IOL calculation errors are there. Then the cataract with the iridotomy is old method, does not provide the clear central visual axis, eccentric visual axis, compromise this binocularity. Cataract with the keratoplasty is a triple procedure, delay in the visual rehabilitation, risk of endothelial loss, anterior chamber reaction, refractive surprises, paucity of the good quality donor corneas. These are the problems in this. Now, if we do cataract surgery, primarily difficulty in visualization, risk of the posterior capsular tear, residual cortex is not seen, the refractive surprises you can see post-operatively, and the time, surgical time is more. Now see, this is the 45 ml male corneal opacity and with the anterior subcapsular cataract. See, this is the patient operated, and you see after that. After the surgery, you will see the defect, and then why this defect is there. So what went wrong? So in this you will see it is a prophylactic antiviral is required, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. Then the wait for eye to quiet, and corneal opacity with superficial or deep ghost vessel. Be cautious, because if there are the ghost vessel, that can cause this type of problem. Corneal sensation must be checked in every case of the corneal opacity whenever you are operating for the cataract surgery. Now, vernal conjunctivitis, cataract usually develops secondary to the chronic steroid use, and the young age with the posterior subcapsular cataract. Now you can see this because here the steroid is used and the limbitis, papillae, inflammation is seen in that. The recommendation should be performed only in the inflamed eye after active VKC control. So you will have to control that and then only you can use topical immunomodulators, systemic immunomodulators are used to control and cataract with the pterygium. Now in the pterygium also, small pterygium less than 3 millimeter not affecting the topography can be left alone or treated with the cataract simultaneously. Now see the medium pterygium more than 3 millimeter affecting topography, pterygium to be treated priority to the cornea. Then the large pterygium affecting the visual axis. Here the pterygium first, then cataract surgery. And what are the take home points? Large pterygium more than 3 millimeter affecting visual axis should be treated with pterygium followed by cataract surgery. Now see, this is the first we did the pterygium, and after doing the pterygium, you will see the what we are doing is the cataract. So now in this patient in other eye, we did the cataract surgery, and the pterygium was the lateral, and patient has a astigmatism. So learn the lesson, and then we did pterygium here. You can see the pterygium was done, and after that we did the cataract surgery. And I will tell you the no refractive surprises, not much astigmatism, and patient vision is good. So this you can see here. I'm removing the lens, and basically whenever we are doing such type of cataract, then we must take care of the corneal opacities. Also, whatever the corneal disease, we must take care. Thank you very much, sir.
So much for your wonderful lecture on this topic of corneal diseases and SICS. I think we can do all kinds of cataract surgery through SICS and can give wonderful results. And Professor Lahane is very accomplished surgeon and does hundreds of surgeries in a day in the area of Mumbai, and we have learned so much from you, sir. Thank you so much for joining. The next talk is by Professor S.P. Singh, who is also doing high volume surgery here in Prayagraj. Professor S.P. Singh, sir, are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Handsome as always.
सर आपकी बहुत डिस्टर्बेंस आ रही है आवाज में डॉक्टर कमलजीत
Hey,
सर
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Professor S.P. Singh, for joining. You are looking handsome as always.
Kamalji Singh. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to share my experience in SLC uveitis. Before that, good morning to everybody. Good morning, Dr. Lahane. I really very much surprised to know about the election, but hope for the best in the future. And good morning to Dr. Ragni Parekh, Dr. Ruchi, and good morning to Dr. Malik, and Pretty very sad for the sudden demise of the madam. In this occasion, I extend my heart tribute to the madam. And again, good morning to all of you. And now you know, I'm going to present the SICS in uveitis. Cataract is one of the most common complications in uveitis, and managing uveitic cataract poses very surgical challenges to the ophthalmic surgeon. And most of the time, you know, cataract.
There is a background noise. Professor speaking, there is background noise behind you or anywhere. In transmission, there is a noise.
1 minute. Yeah. Yes. Just off the fan. Now it is clear. So the cataract is usually caused by
सर आपके माइक से ही प्रॉब्लम हो रही है
prolonged use of the inflammation. And but sometimes
Also, will mute. All must unmute. All must unmute except SPC.
and the cataract also may be sometimes caused by this prolonged use of the steroid, maybe in the form of topical, periocular, or systemic corticosteroid. The tract is primarily indicated to the visual
डॉक्टर एस के सिंह,
rehabilitation.
आप वो ट्यूबलाइट बंद करवा दिए, शायद उसकी वजह से वो हो रहा है क्या? हाँ, अब आवाज करिए, बोलिए तो देखें डिस्टर्बेंस।
We should mute, all of us should be muted.
We are
No
already.
other disturbance at my side. Maybe
सर आपके माइक से ही डिस्टरबेंस हो रहा है। When you speak, disturbance start.
माइक को पकड़ लो यार, एसपी।
Sir, now this is okay, clear, voice is clear now.
माइक को आप नजदीक ले आइए, आई थिंक bring it near to your mouth, maybe your mic should be near to you.
So do you have another system, computers, another laptop with you? Maybe you can, the mic of your computer is not good. Maybe if you have another system, another laptop you have at home.
Maybe you can try an earphone, sir. Earphone लगा के एक बार try कर लीजिए sir. Earphone.
Earphone वाला बटन कहाँ है? लगभग में नहीं मिलती।
That is okay.
No sir, no.
चलो,
Disturbance.
Adul.
चलो सुना दीजिए, जिस आप सुन लेंगे हम क्या है जैसे।
लाइट भी जलवा दीजिए।
ठीक है, क्लियर है।
पिक्चर क्लियर, आप पिक्चर दिखाते रहिए बस।
ओके।
अपनी वीडियो चलाते रहिए, हम देखते रहेंगे, आप बोलते रहिए, हमें समझ आता रहेगा।
Sir, you can just play the video and you can talk along with the video.
Okay, okay. You can see, I'm going to present this ICS rheumatic cataract. And it's a lot of challenges due to the presence of the Sanikia. So that's the Sanikia by tangential movement. Otherwise, if we put it, there is chances of the sclerodermis there, and then sometimes it requires the section. As the fibrinotic membrane represented the important border. So that provides the dilatation, and even it could be dilated in such a situation. I have done this in my elevated technique of pull and pull method, and you can see how the access can be made, the large acceleration can be made in such a small pupil by pull and push method. It has own advantages that it this damage the sphincter, and the so post-operative dilatation can be prevented very easily. So you can see by this method how in such a small pupil we can make the large axis by different pull and pull method, and you can see how the large capsule is completed very easily in this kind of this innovative technique. Yes, see, and then enlarge the size and this again this small people how to yes. So by manual technique, that's the one side and left another side, and put it there, and then gradually rotate it with by manual with the two hooks. Just depending how you can this remove the nucleus. And you can see how you can see that it is small when we are damaging the sphincter inside. So you can maintain the prediction size, and another case. This is how this is there in presence of this standing like the women in this case that the dilatation of the people. So again the case requires the membrane how you see just press at the one point in the yes and this quickly maintain, and then by engaging divine importance do the this memory how we can combine the features go along the borders that is all around by entering and define points. Otherwise very difficult to do the same all around the people. So by going in different sides.
Dr. Singh, if you can mute the audio from your presentation, so at least we'll able to hear you clearly, sir. You are doing a fantastic job, but the video quality voice is not good. So आप सिर्फ वहां से PPT से उसका वॉल्यूम सिर्फ बंद कर दीजिए और आप बोलिए.
Now you can see.
We can see the video. आपका आवाज खराब आ रहा है.
Simply. So do the history by using two bicep hook at to that in and then do the exercise for that is very important you so this again is essential part and the capsule and then again this by remove first yes and then left one point and press another side and really how can lift elbow taking moment by technique and you can remove this yes in certain small people. Thank you very much for the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Unfortunately, थोड़ा audio में there was an issue. But I hope you must have caught up with Dr. Singh. Kamaljit Singh ji, if you can announce the next speaker, sir.
Okay, thank you so much for having a wonderful. Sir, can you mute Professor SP Singh, sir? You are muted, but still the sound is yes, fine. So Professor SP Singh is a versatile surgeon. He does all surgeries, the small incision cataract surgery through small pupils, large pupils, and also keratoplasty and many more things. And he's a good administrator in Allahabad. He's doing a wonderful job and teaches small incision cataract surgery almost all over India. And the next speaker we have is Professor Ragini Parikh, who would be speaking on subluxated cataract. She is also, we have actually doing lots of these kind of instruction courses, and Dr. Ragini Parikh is also a leading practitioner of SICS and does high volume surgeries. So I'll request Professor Ragini Parikh to share the slides.
Tell Professor Lane and Ragini that we have a mini BOA. We have a chartered plane and land in his house, and we do the BOA.
Yeah.
Yes, we will send you charter flight. Don't worry.
Yes. So we will have BOA.
Yes, definitely we'll have BOA.
Yes.
And this year we have got VIOS, na?
Yeah.
We'll enjoy.
Yes.
Definitely. Will. On that day, Malik sir, on that day I was there, but as family was speaking, I kept.
You spoke, na, sir. You spoke, na.
I spoke, correct. But
Bhaiya.
With due respect, doctors, due to paucity of time, if you can quickly move to the presentation, because we would not like that any doctor should miss their presentation. We would want to have your presentation, sir.
Can you see my presentation?
No, ma'am, you need to share your.
Share the presentation.
Yeah. I'll share it.
So.
We have only 30 minutes left with us.
Yeah. Don't worry.
So we don't.
She can run like a bullet train. The bullet train starts from Bombay.
Lovely.
Will start someday.
Right, sir.
I'm just looking for my presentation. Sir, मेरा presentation छोटा किया था पर वो दिख नहीं रहा है अभी.
What is the name of your presentation, ma'am?
Subluxated cataract.
subluxated cataract. अभी मैंने ना छोटा करके रखा था. I opened it, but I'm not able to find it.
Madam, can you see the folder icon next to your Zoom icon?
क्या नाम है? क्या नाम है?
SICS and subluxated.
Subluxated नीचे से इससे
Extreme right में नीचे.
इसी में नीचे इससे नीचे.
Can you see?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Just start the presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Perfect, sir.
Thank you.
सर लाने सर आप तो
respected,
एकदम हाई टेक्निक हो गए.
he came and he's in the next office.
Yes,
Good morning,
sir.
sir.
Okay.
Good morning so much, and I won't waste time. We are dealing with a subluxated cataract, which may be subluxated to a lot of reasons, as we know: trauma, ocular surgery, congenital diseases, pseudo exfoliation, and there might be all these causes because of which the lens is subluxated. The management of a subluxated cataract includes the investigations. First and foremost is see a patient every time that the patient comes to your clinic dilated before a cataract surgery, any patient, and that is when you would catch the subluxation. And the rule of the thumb is that what you see on the slit lamp will be different from what you find on the table, because what you see on the slit lamp will be much less than what you find on the table. And when planning a surgery only, you have to plan it in such a way that you are taking pre-operative precautions, what intraoperative precautions you will take, and what post-operative monitoring also this patient will require, because it's a complicated case. So that's very, very important. Like I've already said, that the slit lamp examination will tell you whether it's subluxated, there is vitreous in the anterior chamber, what is the cause of subluxation. If possible, and if you have availability of a UBM, will also give you the relation of the lens with the other ocular structures. The B-scan ultrasonography, because if there was a trauma, if there's any associated posterior segment abnormality, and a retinal examination as a prerequisite, not only clinically, but also medico-legally, because you might be missing out something in the retina, or the patient may have an RD the next day and you might be in a soup. So these are the protocols which have to be followed. So management includes the counseling of the patient, which is very, very important, to tell him that it is not a simple, straightforward cataract surgery and what are the possibilities that can occur. So to explain to the patient that there may be a need of a potential vitrectomy, a need of a second surgery, and even after an uneventful surgery, the post-operative period may be complicated by a cystoid macular edema, retinal detachment. So that is extremely important. Now, intraoperatively, you have to assess that what is the situation, and according to the situation, this is the algorithm which may be followed. That if there is a zonular dehiscence, then you are going to put in a CTR. If it is inferior, again a CTR. If it is greater than 3 to 6 o'clock, you can put a modified CTR. And if it is a very, very large dehiscence, then whether you want to have more devices to be put inside the eye. And if the subluxation is very, very large, where you cannot go in with a extra capsular surgery like a SICS, then whether you want to remove the lens and then do a fixated IOL, a scleral fixated IOL, an iris fixated IOL. So the surgery starts with planning the incision itself. Ideally, you should plan the incision away from the zonular weakness. Now, it may not always be possible, because if there is an inferior weakness, but if it is superior or superior-temporal, and if it is possible to manage an incision in SICS, it can be done. Because if your incision is at the site of the weakness, if you're giving pressure at the incision site, you will be inviting the vitreous into the wound. So that's very, very important. A sclerocorneal incision is important because it allows, SICS is very good because, it gives you the ease. Viscoelastic remains a very important part of the surgery because there will be manipulation during the surgery, and the viscoelastic will protect the corneal endothelium, or if there is any vitreous, then it can suppress by positive pressure the vitreous. Capsulorhexis is very, very difficult in the subluxation because there is no tautness of the capsular bag. And in fact, in some sorts of occult subluxation, when you start a capsulorhexis, when you're not able to do a capsulorhexis easily, that occult subluxation will be caught because you have difficulty in the capsulotomy, like you have a difficulty in a pediatric eye. And that is when your antennae go up here. Is there any subluxation? So it should be started away from the area of dialysis. A lot of time should be taken to do the capsulorhexis because it's going to be difficult. You can use the Utratas or the needle to do a capsulorhexis. The use of a trypan blue dye, even if the cataract is not mature, will be helpful because it makes the capsulorhexis easier. So that can be done. So as you can see over here, that there is a large area of subluxation in a mature cataract where which the glow is visible. We are starting the rhexis on the quadrant away from the subluxation. It has been stained with trypan blue and the rhexis is made trying to stay away from the equator of the subluxated part as much as possible. And so the rhexis can be done. So it can be difficult, but it can be done. It is done. And so as you can see over here, hydrodissection, the problem with hydrodissection is that any amount of fluid can pass through into the vitreous. It can hydrate the vitreous and it can increase the zonular stress by increasing the bulk of the nucleus, which is subluxated. And you know, it's like a balloon which has filled with water and it can cause a lot of stress. So hydro procedures can be done with very, very little amount of fluid and very, very carefully, or it can be avoided in some cases at all. The orientation of IOL while doing surgery is, how do you orient the IOL? The loop of the IOL itself can act as a CTR ring where it can help to stretch the bag in the direction where the dialysis is, and it can centralize the lens. The loop can be used in that way, and orienting the IOL in a plane parallel to the zonular dialysis and all that. So how you place the loop can be a big advantage to you in this. Capsular tension rings were a big invention which helped us with the subluxated lenses, and it revolutionized the way we deal with subluxated lenses. So these are the different type of capsular tension rings which are there, the sizes, open, closed. So this is a description. Now, how is it inserted? It's a thin ring of polypropylene or PMMA, and it has a eyelet at the end, which can be used, and it is inserted with a forceps or an injector. So as you can see over here, this is a video where you can see the subluxation. You can see the crinkling because of the zonules which are weak. And as you can see, it is being fed in under the capsule. And since it is circular, the movement has to follow the way the ring goes inside. And as you can see, the eyelets always help us. And slowly, slowly in a circumferential manner, under the capsule, the ring is put in, and now the question is, when is the ring to be inserted? So it can be done safely after the capsulorhexis, before dealing with the nucleus, or after removing the nucleus, before cortex aspiration. Every case is customized, and you have to decide. Like sometimes, you know, if you put the capsular tension ring before, then it will assist the nucleus delivery and it will not allow excess of subluxation or the vitreous prolapse. Or if you feel that you can do it afterwards, you can do that too. So it can be done after delivery. Okay. So when do you not use a CTR? When there is no rhexis, when there is a posterior capsular tear, because we had a patient where when Preetham was operating, we found so many patients who had a ring inside the vitreous. Post-operative monitoring of the patient is very, very important because you have to see the centration of the IOL, the presence of vitreous, shape of the pupil, intraocular pressure, pseudophacodonesis, and consequent systemic cystoid macular edema, and retinal examination. Subluxated cataracts can give results if there is proper pre-operative planning, proper intraoperative management, and adequate vitrectomy. Thank you so much for a patient listening, and they can be managed. I thank all my teachers present here today for their unconditional support and throughout our lives. And I respect and admire Malik sir. I'm learning every day a lot from you, that the show must go on. life, if the show can go on for you with such a major tragedy, then what happened to us is not even a mustard seed compared to what happened. And you taught us that the show must go on, and we will always follow your footsteps. Kamaljeet Singh sir, my mentor and guide, Ruchi, my dear friend, SP Singh sir, my mentor and guide, who stands with us always. Pranav, he always says कि मैं आपका भतीजा हूँ. And मैं सबको, and Lahane sir, my teacher. I'm so fortunate that his friends are there. मैं सबको प्रणाम करती हूँ. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry to disturb you. I'm in a very bad position.
Thank you.
May
Thank
I
you.
request quickly, please go ahead because we have only.
Okay. So the next speaker is Dr. Shama, who will be speaking on pterygium and cataract. Dr. Shama, can you share your slides, please?
Yes, sir.
So she has been doing quite a lot of pterygium with cataract and has produced wonderful videos and has done quite a lot of work on pterygium, how to have a good.
I'm sorry, I forgot to thank Lakhani sir for keeping us in check, and dear Shama who took our photographs, who made the beautiful session, who put it everywhere. And thank you, Dr. Shama. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a pleasure. Thank you, ma'am. Good morning to all the respected faculty
Ma'am,
members.
please share.
I would directly come to my talk. I would be talking about SICS with pterygium.
Share your screen.
Okay, I thought it's already shared. Wait a minute. Is it visible now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, continue.
Yes, sir. Good morning. I would be talking on SICS with pterygium. In a recent study in South India, it was revealed that 1/10 of new OPD patients have pterygium in at least one eye, and half of them had coexistent cataract. UV radiation is an important predisposing factor for both these conditions. So should we deal with them simultaneously? This magnitude of problem goes on increasing as we move from North to South India. The concern with pterygium is about the pterygium-induced astigmatism, which affects the IOL power apart from the cosmetic effects it has. Studies have demonstrated that even a grade 2 pterygium may induce about 3 diopter of wither rule astigmatism. Excision of pterygium induces changes in both the meridian and both the corneal surfaces. The persons predisposed are mainly from the lower socioeconomic strata who choose to avoid spectacles for various reasons, and unattended pterygium will make the patient optically blind. Now, what is pterygium-associated astigmatism? It is the sum of pre-existing astigmatism and pterygium-induced astigmatism. Both these factors, they are independent variates. Patients of more than 50 years, they usually have against the rule astigmatism, whereas pterygium induces with the rule astigmatism. In our case, series of cataract and pterygium of grade 2 and 3, most of the patients had with the rule astigmatism. This pterygium-induced astigmatism can depend upon the horizontal length, surface area, and the vascularity. We have different grading systems, a TANS grading and SENS grading, but overall the whole astigmatism will depend on all these factors combined, and a single grading can't tell how much astigmatism will be induced. We can measure the astigmatism with refraction, but if there is coexistent cataract, it is possible in few cases only. And the most important thing, that pterygium induces hemiastigmatism, so it is difficult to measure, and the acceptance of cylinder is further poor. So keratometry and topography are better. Keratometry detects astigmatism only in the central 3 mm of cornea. Topography is the best tool because it gives central as well as a peripheral astigmatism. In large pterygium, topography is neither feasible nor required, as sequential surgery is mandatory. What happens after pterygium surgery? The pterygium-induced astigmatism is reversible except if you have corneal scarring. We should do repeat keratometry after 4 and 6 weeks to look for stability of cornea. Usually after 6 weeks, the cornea stabilizes. But period required for stabilization may vary depending upon the grade of pterygium. The amount of change in corneal astigmatism will be positively correlated with preoperative grade of pterygium and the preoperative astigmatic value. More steepening is detected when bare sclera is performed as opposed to graft, and the mode of graft fixation has no correlation. Sequential has been proven to be better in cases of cataract and glaucoma and cataract and endothelial keratoplasty, and same remains true for cataract and pterygium. But we can choose simultaneous surgery in patients who have a small pterygium at limbus less than 2 mm, low or absent astigmatism, regular Myers on keratometry, and regular central corneal curvature on topography. In simultaneous surgery, we try and save as much of host conjunctiva as possible. We dissect the pterygium tissue free and excise it. Thereafter, we harvest the graft from the superotemporal area after excision of the pterygium. We harvest the graft and place it separately. Then we move ahead with the cataract surgery. And after completing the cataract surgery and placing the IOL, then in the end, we fix the graft, and we can also cover the wound with the conjunctival flap. Harvesting a graft from the superotemporal area will actually not compromise the covering of the SICS wound with conjunctival flap. I prefer to take it from superotemporal conjunctiva, the graft, and if there's any doubt, I like to move to amniotic membrane. There have been reports of taking the graft from the pterygium tissue, but the cosmetic effect is never good if you harvest the conjunctival graft from the pterygium tissue itself. Regarding the position of tunnel, superior tunnel will negate the with the rule astigmatism to some extent. For double-headed pterygium, the approach has to be superior. If there is conjunctival scarring superiorly, or if there is less than 1 diopter with the rule astigmatism, we place the incision temporally. Scleral thinning has to be ruled out. Incision should be watertight, and in this surgery, we avoid antimetabolites if it is combined. Now, regarding the IOL power. According to some studies, if the pterygium size is larger than 2.40 and the simultaneous surgery is planned, the implanted IOL power should be at least 0.50 diopter smaller than the calculated power. We reduce IOL power by 0.5 diopter in grade 2 and 1 diopter in grade 3. There are various regression formulas available for IOL calculation, and one can use them if required. Regarding astigmatism management, in simultaneous surgery, any attempt is avoided, and in sequential surgery, the rule is same as in any SICS. This is one of the cases of sequential surgeries, which was TANS grade 3 and SANS grade 2. Prior to pterygium surgery, the horizontal meridian was flatter and the vertical meridian was steeper. Topography was not possible. Keratometry was performed, although the Myers were a bit irregular. After performing the conjunctival autograft, the horizontal meridian became steeper by 4.25 diopter and the vertical meridian became flatter by 0.75 diopter, and the IOL power changed nearly about 3 diopter. So we went ahead and we performed the superotemporal tunnel with SICS surgery with a superotemporal tunnel, and this was the topography 1 month after the cataract surgery. Now, in conclusion, the sequential surgery is always better than simultaneous surgery as it prevents the postoperative surprises. If simultaneous surgery is to be done in candidates not fit in the criteria, reduce the IOL power, and no attempts for astigmatism management should be done in simultaneous surgery. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Shama. Thanks a lot. We have the last speaker of this session. After this, we'll take up few questions. Dr. Pranav Saluja, who is senior resident in the department and is doing SICS and FACO and is also working on medical retina. So, Dr. Pranav Saluja, please. You can start.
Morning, respected seniors. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak among such
Sir, speak
stalwarts
louder.
of ophthalmology. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Pranav, we can hear you, but it's a little soft. That's all. We can hear you, but it's soft.
Okay, ma'am. I'll try to talk a little louder.
He's a soft, very soft boy.
Yes.
You need to harden a little.
The technological advances in ophthalmology has grown by leaps and bounds, and it is not only a duty to improve patients' vision, but it is also to refine it. And a proper management of astigmatism can lead to excellent visual outcomes. And to achieve emetropia is the target nowadays. So the goals of the surgery are mainly that there should be painless visual recovery. We should give spectacle independence to the patient. We should correct all the pre-existing astigmatism that is there, and the repeatability of the surgical results should be there. So there are maybe two types of astigmatism that we deal with, which is the with the rule and the against the rule. Against the rule is the one that is common in patients who are older, that is the cataract patients. I'll be a little brief because we have little time left. So mainly proper pre-operative assessment of pre-existing astigmatism should be done, and we can see that the prevalence is around 86.6%. The main factors are the incision characteristics, the use of cautery, and the use and non-use of suture. So we can measure the astigmatism with the help of retinoscopy, keratometry, and corneal topography. Corneal topography is the one that we prefer now, but manual keratometry can be done in patients where there is poor fixation, corneal abnormalities, distorted Meyers, highly toric cornea, or dry cornea. In the rest of the cases, we prefer topography. So the astigmatism correction in SICS. So the incision characteristics is very important, mainly the size of the incision, which we have already talked about. Larger the incision, the more the flattening is there and more the astigmatism, and the smaller, the lesser the flattening. So this is how we make a smaller incision and reduce the surgically induced astigmatism that is there. The distance from the cornea is very important, and the farther the incision from the cornea, the lesser the astigmatism. And the configuration should always be to hit the astigmatically neutral zone. So there may be different type of incisions which are there. The traditional smile incisions, the straight incision, the frown incision. Frown incision is the one that we prefer, but we can also go for blue menthol and chevron incision. But blue menthol and chevron are a little difficult for the novice. We usually make it in the astigmatically neutral zone. So this is derived from the two important equations. This was given by Koch in 91. That surgically induced astigmatism is directly proportional to the length of the incision cube. And the funnel's base is at the limbus, and as it moves away, it widens. So if we give an incision on the superior side, we tend to induce more surgically induced astigmatism, but it is easy to learn and easy to start for the starting surgeons. And a temporal incision is the one which gives lesser astigmatism. The site of incision depends on the phenomena of coupling, and the flattening effect is achieved at the tissue and steepening is produced 90 degrees away. Surgically induced astigmatism is found to be around -1 to 1.5 diopter at 90 degrees if a 6.5 millimeter incision is given. So this was a study done by Gokhale et al, and they found that superior incision is the one which is the least surgically induced. And incision length, as we've talked about, the larger the incision, the more the astigmatism, which can be around 1.36 if we give an incision of 7 millimeter. Also, the cautery, excessive cautery may increase in astigmatism because of scleral shrinkage and scleral necrosis. So minimal cautery should be done. So how do we correct this pre-existing astigmatism? In this case, in cases where there is mild astigmatism, we neutralize by changing the site of the incision. That is, we should always operate on the steeper axis. So this is how we reduce the pre-existing astigmatism if it is less than 1 diopter. Then there is limbal relaxing incisions, which we can give. It is given at a 90% depth with a guarded knife on the steeper meridian and just in front of the limbus. So this is a video showing us giving a limbal relaxing incision. This is a frown incision that we make. We first make the tunnel, and after that, we go for the limbal relaxing relaxing incision. We give around a 6 millimeter. We take 6 millimeter from the calipers, and then we give. This is a guarded knife which is giving a limbal relaxing incision just in front of the limbus. So it is imperative to check the calculations to prevent any mishap, and 90-degree off is the most common error that we find. So there are multiple nomograms which are given, and these may be helpful for deciding what kind of incision to be made and how much astigmatism will be corrected with it. So there is Miller's nomogram, and then there are other nomograms which are given by James P. Gill. So the advantages are that there is less tendency of shift in the resultant cylindrical axis. There is less irregular corneal flattening, and irregular astigmatism is seen. In cases of arcuate incision, we see more irregular astigmatism, and it is easier to perform than the arcuate incision. So the other thing is that we can go for an opposite clear corneal incision. This was a thing which was given by Liver and Dan, and they approached the clear corneal incision and added an identical incision on the opposite side. So the amount of astigmatism corrected by it was mainly done in phacoemulsification, but we can also do it in small incision cataract surgery by giving the opposite clear corneal incision. They are just placed 1.5 to 2 millimeter inside the edge of the limbal vessels along the steeper meridian of the astigmatism. So this is a flowchart depicting how we can correct preoperative astigmatism, how we can go with the surgery. If there is low astigmatism, frown incision can be given, which is 3 millimeter behind the cornea. And in moderate cases, we can go for a incision on the steeper meridian, about 6 millimeter, and just straight in the relation to the limbus, because that will correct more astigmatism and flatten the cornea more. And in higher cases, we go for a combination of limbal relaxing incision, opposite clear corneal incision, and a incision profile. So post-operatively, we can correct the astigmatism with astigmatic keratotomy, wound revision, and excimer laser. So the take-home message is that we should do a careful identification of astigmatism magnitude and meridian, both pre-op and intra-op. And that is how we can get a good correction of the astigmatism. And we should always choose with a step ladder approach, and techniques can be effectively combined for higher levels of astigmatism. And we should always apply the incision on the steeper axis because it gets flat. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pranav, for finishing your talk well in time. And now I have already finished my talk in the beginning. So now we have panel discussion. And just few questions from you all, from all the speakers. First is from Professor KPS Malik about 6 in hard cataract. What is the best length for a beginner for doing a hard cataract, sir? Professor KPS Malik, sir?
Beginner, I think, should not start from less than 7 millimeter of incision, and then internal incision has to be nearly 9. So that has, because they must engage the section, and if they can use the antechamber maintainer, that is really additional help, because this can push the visco from the antechamber maintainer and engage the nucleus much better. Possibly the lens glide also helps in railing the lens onto the glide and ease it out. We use the iris repositor, but I think lens glide definitely will be more slippery and better.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. The next question is to Professor Ruchi Goyal. This is about glaucoma. What do you prefer always, this sequential surgery of glaucoma and cataract or simultaneous? Professor Ruchi?
Yes, sir. So it depends on the severity of glaucoma. That means how the pressures are uncontrolled, how bad is the cupping. Suppose we have a patient where the cataract is so advanced that we can't monitor the patient post-operatively unless we do a cataract surgery simultaneously, and there is an advanced glaucoma as well, then I will go for a simultaneous surgery. However, if there is a case where I can monitor the patient and the cupping is let's say about 0.7, 0.8 cupping, and I want a good drop of IOP, I would rather go for a stage surgery where if needed, I would apply MMC, do a trabeculectomy, wait, and then I can go for a cataract surgery later. But otherwise, by and large, mostly a combined surgery is preferred whenever, if you can't do your fields, you can't see the disc properly, the vision has dropped significantly, then I'll go for a combined surgery.
Thank you. The next question is to Professor T.P. Lahane. Is he there, sir?
He's there. He's there.
Okay, okay, fine. So sometimes you get a poor view of the cataract when there is corneal opacity. How do you manage that situation, sir?
When it is a poor view is there, so sometimes I use the endo illuminator. In that that helps us for the rhexis and also for the removal of the lens, and also prevent the posterior tear. But if the more dense is there, then we go for the keratoplasty and the combined surgery with the cataract. So these two things we always use when there is a dense opacity.
Okay, thank you. So endo illuminator should be placed at the limbus so that you can get a good
Yes,
view.
yes, at the
You
limbus.
should switch off your microscope light.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
You
Thank
should
you so
turn
much,
on
sir.
the endo illuminator.
Thank you. The next question is to Professor S.P. Singh. How do you give steroids in the case of complicated cataract or uveitis, and how do you judge your patient, sir? Professor S.P. Singh?
It is always advised to do the plan the surgery for at least 3 months. Should be inflammation free without any flare, any flare the aqueous or the inflammation. Otherwise, most of the time there is chances of the recurrence of the uveitis may be flare up post-operatively. So it is very important, and most of the time only topical is sufficient. Topical steroid is sufficient, but sometimes some of the cases, some of this special cases of uveitis like rheumatoid arthritis or some granulomatous systemic steroid is also indicated 3 to 4 days prior to the surgery.
Thank you, Professor S.P. Singh. Thank you so much. The next, we have very little time, so one question from you all. The next question is from Dr. Ragini Parekh about the subluxated cataract. Have you used segments of CTR or full CTR, or what you normally use for subluxated lens? Professor Ragini?
Unmute.
So we use CTR rings for subluxated lenses, where we feel that with the CTR rings, the patient can be managed. But if we feel that the patient cannot be managed, and if there is a large subluxation, we have a proper retina unit functioning with us, and we think of another option where we can give the best results to the patient.
Have you ever tried intracapsular cataract surgery in a high grade of subluxated cataract?
Sir, so, you know, my teacher, Dr. Lahane sir, is started off with intracapsular cataract surgery. And the first camp which I did with him in the late 90s, I have done intracapsular surgery. And, you know, because we did not learn intracapsular surgery. But since you all have learned it, I have also seen intracapsular surgery done by him, and to slowly remove the nucleus without disturbing the vitreous phase.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that art, yes, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Shama, how long you wait after doing a good pterygium surgery for a sequential surgery for doing cataract?
Minimum 4 weeks is required, and it's preferable to repeat the keratometry at 6 weeks to confirm that the progression is not there of the astigmatism. Then only we should proceed with the cataract surgery. 6 weeks time is usually sufficient.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shama. And with this, we finish off this panel discussion because there is a bell being struck by the coordinator, and we are extremely thankful to all the speakers, especially Professor KPS Malik, Dr. Ruchi Goyal, Dr. Lahane, Dr. Agni, and Dr. Shama, and Professor S.P. Singh, and Dr. Pranav. And finally, to the Grover audiovisual team who are doing a wonderful job.
And Dr. Atul.
Thank you, Dr. Kamaljit Singh ji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It
Thank
was
you.
great
Thank you.
hosting.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir.
Great
Thank
hosting
you,
all you
everyone.
senior
Thank
doctors
you,
here on
sir.
this platform. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pranam and
Thank you.
Pranam. Thank you so much.